In the final bloody months of World War I, some of the most incredible stories of the entire war took place, and this is one of them. It's the story of the Lost Battalion, a tale of sheer courage, absolute desperation, and a kind of resilience that's almost impossible to believe. Take a look at this. These are the survivors. In early October of 1918, more than 500 American soldiers pushed deep into a forest held by the Germans. Just 6 days later, only 194 of them would walk out. What happened in between those two moments is just a staggering testament to the limits of human endurance. So, how did this all happen? Well, to really get it, we need to look at who these men were and the insane fortress they were ordered to attack. The 77th Division was called the Metropolitan Division, and for a very good reason. Most of these guys were straight off the streets of New York City. A lot of them were recent immigrants, working-class men, and some historians think that the toughness they needed just to get by in the city is part of what made them so resilient. And their commander? Not some career soldier, but Major Charles Whittlesey, a Harvard-educated lawyer from the East Coast. And their objective, the Argonne Forest. Now, you have to understand, this wasn't just a bunch of trees. This was a fortress. The Germans had held it for 4 years, and they turned it into this deep, deadly web of trenches, hidden machine gun nests, and barbed wire so thick it was piled higher than a man's head. For 4 years, no Allied army had been able to crack it. The mindset from the top brass was simple. It was absolute. This quote from General Alexander pretty much sums up the entire plan for the massive Meuse-Argonne offensive. No retreat, no going back. Any ground you take, you hold it, no matter the cost. And that order? Well, it would have huge consequences for Major Whittlesey and his men. So, with that forward-at-all-costs mentality, the 77th pushed ahead. But what started as a really successful advance very quickly turned into a desperate trap. On October 2nd, Whittlesey's battalion did exactly what they were told. They pushed hard, and they actually broke right through the German lines. The problem was, they were the only ones. The French troops on their left and the other American units on their right got hammered by the Germans and just stalled out. Whittlesey had no idea, but his men had just walked themselves onto an island, deep behind enemy lines. 554. That's how many men were now totally cut off. A small island of American soldiers just completely swallowed by the German army. The trap had been sprung. Their situation became critical, and it happened fast. Any runners they sent for help were either killed or captured. Their communication lines were totally cut. They ran out of food almost immediately. Ammunition was getting lower and lower with every single German attack. And water? To get water, they had to crawl under constant enemy fire to a little stream nearby. They were completely and utterly alone. What came next was an unbelievable 6-day ordeal. It was a fight for survival as the Germans tried relentlessly to just wipe them off the face of the earth. For 6 brutal days, the Germans threw everything they had at this little pocket. Grenades, mortars, wave after wave of soldiers. And somehow, the Americans held on. But the casualties were staggering. And then on October 4th, their already terrible situation became an absolute catastrophe. Just try to imagine it. You're surrounded, you're out of food, you're low on ammo, and you're watching your friends die all around you. What could possibly be worse than that? Their worst nightmare became reality. American artillery, given the wrong coordinates, started dropping high explosive shells directly on their position. For the men trapped in that pocket, it must have felt like a betrayal from the sky. They were being torn apart by their own army. With all their runners gone and comms totally cut, their one single hope for stopping that friendly fire rested on the wings of their very last carrier pigeon. Major Whittlesey scribbled this desperate, frantic message. I mean, you can just feel the urgency in his words. Our artillery is dropping a barrage directly on us. For heaven's sake, stop it. He attached this plea to the leg of their last pigeon, a bird named Cher Ami. As Cher Ami took off, German soldiers saw her and just opened fire. She was shot and she fell. But then, miraculously, the little bird got back up and flew on. She was badly wounded, but she flew 25 miles in just 25 minutes and delivered that message. The friendly fire stopped. The men who were left were saved by a pigeon. It's an absolutely incredible story. Cher Ami's flight bought them time, precious time, but they still had to be rescued. The final days of the siege were just this desperate race against the clock.
So now you have two desperate battles raging at the same time. Inside the pocket, Whittlesey's men are somehow repelling constant German attacks and refusing every single demand to surrender. And just outside, the rest of the 77th Division is launching these ferocious attacks of their own, trying to break through the German lines and reach their friends. On October 8th, the relief force finally broke through. But the cost of those 6 days was just immense. Of the 554 men who were trapped, 197 were killed, and many, many more were wounded. Only 194 were able to walk out on their own. The bravery shown in that pocket was, well, it was extraordinary. The 3 commanding officers, Whittlesey, McMurtry, and Holderman, all received the Medal of Honor. That's the highest military decoration in the United States for their leadership and their sheer guts in holding that line against impossible odds. Today, this monument stands in the Argonne Forest in France. It honors the incredible sacrifice of these men, the lawyer, the immigrants, the street kids from New York, all of whom were pushed way beyond the limits of human endurance and simply refused to break. You know, the story of the Lost Battalion isn't just about a battle. It's a profound story about the human spirit. And it really forces us to ask, when we're faced with the unimaginable, what is it deep inside of us that makes it possible to endure, to keep fighting, and to hold our ground?